Some content or topics discussed could trigger a past anxiety or be sensitive or disturbing to listen to or view. Please view and listen with caution. Hi, my name is Todd Blyleven. I'm one of the hosts of the Walking Tall podcast, and it's our mission to help all people that are down and depressed or dealing with some sort of trauma or mental health issue to learn how to stand back up and walk tall again in their lives. Please follow us on all of our social platforms, our YouTube channel, and check out our Walking Tall movement at www.walkingtallmovement.com. Now, here's our show.
Welcome back once again to Walking Tall. If you were with us last week, we welcomed Kyle Thousand to the show. And if you didn't hear, Kyle has just a plethora of amazing life experiences and certainly is a part of the Walking Tall movement, valuing mental health personally and professionally. And Todd, hearing Kyle's story and getting to know him a little bit better, what resonated with you and what are you excited about for this week?
Well, obviously, KT, everything that he's accomplished comes with a lot of hard work, and being in the industry, my whole life, and understanding how hard that is, even to become a baseball agent and be successful at that, that's not easy to do. And his perseverance, I think he's got a little cool factor to him, which always helps, especially when you're talking to players. He's got that swag, but really enjoyed having him on the show and his story. And then obviously, his now direct connection to the unfortunate incidences that happened in Nashville is we're just really happy to be there and walk tall with him side by side, and just a great individual. So I really enjoyed getting to know him, and I look forward to working with him more.
Yeah, and Dr. LaRosa, you being a lifelong Yankee fan and him having a Derek Jeter jersey hanging over his head. I know we talked after the show. You're like, was my jaw dropped the whole show? But seriously, obviously KT is just an amazing individual and, has a lot of great experiences and insight. And after you sat back and heard our show or took some time to reflect on the recording, what resonated with you?
Well, I too just enjoyed meeting him so very much. And the one thing that I appreciate about what we're doing is that we're showing people from all walks and levels of life so many different facets of experience and success personally and professionally. And the one thing that we all have in common is that we're vulnerable. Our mental health supersedes any of our earthly successes, if you will. And was so generous and vulnerable with us and his time. It was just a remarkable thing to hear. And what resonated with me, again, which is what I've told both of you, is how a person born with that bodily kinesthetic intellect, that gift to move and perform at such high levels, how they transfer all of that energy and knowledge into a successful career doing other things related to sports, which is fantastic and wonderful for anyone who loves it that much. But to me, it's just such a testament to his strength and to his will to succeed and to go on, because it really isn't easy. When your brain is happy doing something, that means it's really good at it. And to let that go and move on to other things and use all that knowledge to be successful in other areas and to help other people is a true testament to Walking Tall. And I really, really enjoyed hearing his story and getting to know him.
Yeah. And I'm so happy to have introduced to both of you to a friend of mine. As I said during the show, I've known KT for over 20 years. And Todd, you're exactly right. He does have that cool factor. We talked on the show about him having photos with Machine Gun Kelly and Dave Grohl. And just recently he flew out from Nashville to Colorado to Red Rocks. If you haven't been out to Red Rocks Music Amphitheater, it's one of the best places on earth to see a live concert. And he was out there signing 2 DJs from Italy at this point. So just an amazing guy. I've been so fortunate to know him for as long as I have. And I feel just honored that, we talked about his life experiences and his connections and things of that sort. And he still stayed in touch with me and values Walking Tall. And so it's a true testament to who he is as a person. And, his character is just off the charts. So
And you're a
KT,
great person to know, so.
exactly. But now speaking of a great person to know, we're just so excited to have today's guest on the show with us. We got to talk to KT last week and hear about his glitz and glam life. And I think when we bring our next guest onto the show today, we're going to have polar opposites. But that doesn't mean they don't have the same mission, vision, values. And so as we get to meet Mr. Ian Hill, you'll certainly recognize some of the same things in KT that we saw in Ian. But Ian is a humanitarian, business leader, award-winning social innovator, professional development pioneer, and world record breaker. These are just some of the words often used to describe him. He's also recognized for being catalyst for positive change throughout the world. Ian today is the CEO of the National Grassroots Media Corporation and its family of networks. These digital TV and radio networks reach 185 million households across the US and 3.1 billion mobile devices around the world. Currently, Ian is attempting to set another world record by becoming the oldest man to play NCAA Division I college football in the United States. This effort is to bring light to the alarming suicide rates in our communities. Ian is also known for his humanitarian effort, Let Them Be Kids, of which he is the founder and volunteer CEO. This initiative built 168 playgrounds, skate parks, and fitness parks across Canada, and the World Leisure Congress named him one of the most innovative programs in the world. The National Council for Community and Justice and the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission recognize Ian for his commitment to positive change by naming him the Humanitarian of the Year. The Stand for Children organization named Ian its Child Advocate of the Year, and he was also named the Prime Minister's Social Innovator once again. So it's our pleasure to bring to you Mr. Ian Hill, and Todd, let him on in.
All right. He has been admitted.
All right.
There he is.
So
Welcome.
welcome. And Ian, I just informed our listeners of whom you are, and we talked about last week's show. If you didn't hear, we had a gentleman last week by the name of Mr. Kyle Thousand, and KT, as we call him, is a prominent baseball agent in Major League Baseball and has lived a lavish life. And as we meet with you, seeing you sit here in your car, I can't sit back and think, it's just indicative of exactly who you are as a person and the life you lead. And I'll tell a quick story before I turn it to you. If you haven't heard, on Walking Tall, we got these logo stickers, and we're trying to send them out to people to try and spread our message. And I've been texting with Ian, and I said, Ian, I want to send you a bunch of stickers. You're traveling around North America. You need to help spread our word. And he said, well, I need to be at a place long enough for you to get them sent to me. And so that's exactly who Ian is. And Ian, thank you for joining us. And please tell listeners.
Thank you for having me.
Who you are.
Well, I'm a regular guy based out of Northern Nevada for the last 35 years. And through ups and downs of life, we try to do everything we can to lighten the burden of our fellow man and make the world a little bit better. Professionally, I was in the casino business for a long time, and through that was able to have some good success. And then we've owned businesses on both sides of the North American border, both in the United States and Canada. But through all of that, we've launched a number of different initiatives, from the building of schools for those less fortunate and the most vulnerable amongst us, but also initiatives to build community through some very unique different models. And most prominently, people might recall our Let Them Be Kids program, where we donated 168 playgrounds, skate parks, and fitness parks across North America, all honoring fallen soldiers or first responders. And certainly we have to acknowledge Kool-Aid and Kraft Foods, our partner in that. Of course, they were tremendous in the support, but really it was about regular people making a significant difference. Then I took a hiatus, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah.
I took a little hiatus. I took a little break because I didn't feel like the work that we were doing was making a difference. I looked at the scoreboard and it said evil 393 and good 21. They were still selling meth. There was still elder abuse. A 12-year-old had still hung himself. And so I quit. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. On my 50th birthday, I walked downstairs and told my family I'd take my own life. And everybody was a little shocked and thought, wow, does that mean we're not having cake? Like, what are we doing here? And I just went through a dark time because I just didn't feel like what I was saying or what I was doing was making a difference.
Yeah. And if I
When
could
I
say
came,
one thing real quick, um,
Wow.
it's amazing to me to hear that, right? Knowing you as long as I have, I think I got the pleasure of knowing you in 2014 as you came and spoke to our organization, and the impact inevitably that you make everywhere you go is significant. And I'll say that to you first and foremost. But somebody, of your impact still has these mental health issues and still feels the way you felt. And I know you were going to get into it a little bit, but I want to just say that it's not abnormal for folks doing abnormal things to feel this way, and you're no different. So yeah, please carry on.
but I came to find that you're right. As I learned and as I grew and as I did the research and wonderful people came alongside of me, and who can explain the human mind? Doctor can probably explain the human mind, but that's way above my pay grade, right? I can't explain the human mind. And I can remember I was given the key to a city because they were thanking us for the difference that we had made. And I remember just going up to the hotel room and just crying because I was inadequate. That if they only knew what I really was, they wouldn't have the same impression. There was an incongruency between what people saw and what was really going on. And I couldn't live that double life anymore. I just didn't want to live. And what I came to find was childhood trauma, things like abandonment. And middle-aged men can be very challenging. Now, certainly it can be challenging for anybody, but in middle-aged men, they're 70% more likely to succumb to suicide than any other segment of the population. And I came to find that some of those unresolved issues and challenges, when they're not addressed through professional help or in other modalities, they come back and they can knock you out. And certainly that's what happened to me. So when we came out of that journey in the wilderness, I just said, I appreciate that the universe allowed me to have this experience, because now I'm going to go kick the shit out of depression. And so we launched a number of initiatives, which I'm sure we'll talk about, to do something about the challenges that people are facing today. And prior to my little journey in the wilderness and now post journey in the wilderness, there's always been a common thread. And that's that regular people can change the world. That people in small towns and big towns have what it takes. On a daily basis, they're told that they don't. 17,000 media impressions a month telling them that their teeth aren't white enough, their hair is not shiny enough, their grass isn't green enough, that they don't have the capacity to take on the challenges of the world, but they do. So the common theme underneath all of this, whether it was the opening of schools or building of playgrounds or starting of orphanages, that it always was very simple. Regular people can change the world. Now, they may not change the whole big bad world, but they can handle their little corner of it. And that's been kind of the constant theme and the thread that tied it all together.
Yeah, it resonates so deeply with me on many levels. But Todd, you obviously had gotten to know Ian a little bit prior to today's show and heard his story, and got to meet with him separately. And talk to us a little bit about your experience en route and how some of what Ian is saying here is resonating with you, because I'll say to you, Todd, like, you're not an ordinary guy either, and I don't think Ian is, right? And he says ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And the thing I got to know and I got to learn about you, Todd, is you're an extraordinary man who did an extraordinary thing. But you also struggled, and how did what Ian said kind of hit home to you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Ian, it's really sad that in our times of when we think things are going great and we're putting effort into our lives, and then to feel this at the end of the night, I'm just not adequate enough. I'm just not doing things right. I'm not fitting in. I could be doing more, but I'm so lost and in that dark spot. And I think a lot of men and women, I shouldn't just single out men by any means. I think a lot of people go through that, especially in today's times. dealing with, whether you're dealing with your kids or you're looking at community and you're hearing these horrible stories, how can you help more? And you feel inadequate enough to where, what am I going to do? You can do things. And, like my experience, I've obviously always tried to help people throughout, but at Route 91, when I turned around and went back and had a total disregard of my own life to help others, that's the ultimate sacrifice, right? And then you have to live with that every single day. And I know even today, when I come up to my office and I go to work, and sometimes my brain gets a little cloudy and I've got to turn on my classical music and I have to make all these alterations to my normal routine of trying to make sure that I can focus, and I get upset with myself. And then you can't remember things at times because maybe your mind wanders and stuff, but support is so key. And the more we are touched by other people that have the similar stories, the more they feel like they're not isolated, which is, I'm so impressed with your mission on to just, even just to go play football, number one, on the D1 side. So if you need a middle linebacker, you let me know. But I think just the overall message of it is just so impactful, that you're trying to raise awareness to save 1,000 men's lives. And I know it's beyond that, right? But
I don't know.
inspirational.
Two things. You were a hero, and as a Nevadan, I'm a Nevadan. And although I live in northern Nevada, I'm a Nevadan. And that shook us to our core in that state. We're a small state, only just over 3 million people at the time when that tragedy happened. And so all Nevadans were affected. And your heroism and your willingness, as you said, to set aside self-preservation and have a complete disregard for your own safety, for the safety of others. I think it's an incredible example of what regular people can do, right? They do extraordinary things.
It's in that night, I did a podcast with a really good friend of mine, a former teammate. He's from Las Vegas. This just launched, and the main emphasis I wanted to make sure was put forth was in that time of crazy adversity and crazy, scary terror. As time went on and people got more comfortable, all of a sudden you're seeing Nevadans come from neighborhoods all around to do whatever they could. First responders putting their lives on the line, just regular people doing extraordinary things to help somebody stay alive. And that was truly amazing. I will always hold on to that. In this one visual I have, where there was a lot of people injured and there were more people on top of those people just helping. There's no politics, there's no race, there's no gender equality, there's none of that. It's literally someone needed help. We are going to do that. And the state of Nevada, and afterwards, all the sporting events, the casinos, everybody that rose up to Vegas Strong and Country Strong, it really helped me get better on the inside. It was an inspiration.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, Todd, what you just talked about, the latent energy of human capital sitting, and then a tragedy, horrific tragedy happens, and all of a sudden that latent energy is activated. I'd ask you, and I'd ask the viewers and listeners to thoughtfully consider, what if that latent energy was activated without a tragedy? What if that latent energy was activated because we saw that things were going sideways, that the world was going into the ditch, that we didn't need a horrific fire or a hurricane or a cataclysmic human event to occur, but we just activated our latent energy. And really, that's what these various initiatives that we're doing right now, that is the essence of it.
You're on mute, Ian.
amazing things will happen when we activate the latent energy of regular people, because you are an example of that.
Yeah.
Well, so are you.
Yeah, and
Well, yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of latent energy,
Yeah.
real quick, Dr. LaRosa, Ian had made mention, of his current inspiration to save 1,000 lives from suicide of middle-aged men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And without saying too much, Todd and I are in that demographic, and obviously Ian is himself. But talk to us a little bit about within the medical field, the conversations and the insight, the research, to speak to some of those impacts to middle-aged men in general, like ourselves. Ian, in conversations, you've often said, they're the most marginalized population in today's society and things of that sort. And obviously the mental health hurdles that could provide. So yeah, Dr. LaRosa, please, if you would, talk to us about the pressures of men like ourselves.
Of course. But first, I just want to say, Ian, when you spoke with passion about all your initiatives and your work and what you're driven to do, I choked up for a minute. It's a good thing that Chris pointed to Todd first to intervene, because it really strikes my heart with such reality what you're trying to do. And when I was back in my 20s, I worked with a lot of people with disabilities for a while, and I saw things not really being done correctly. I saw them lacking in the things that these programs were receiving money for, and it angered me. And so I had some parents say to me, "Why can't you start your own program?" And I thought to myself, well, because I'm 28 and I have no money, but let's give it a shot. So that's exactly what I did. And I did start my own company to serve people with disabilities because I wanted to make a difference and I wanted them to have a better quality of life. And so what you're doing is just on a grand scale, and it just resonates with my heart. So, thank you so much. And I understand, firsthand the grip that depression can have over you. I was always prone to dysthymic disorder, which is a low-grade chronic depressive disorder. And I sort of dealt with it my whole life and never really paid much attention to it. I was an overachiever. I just did what I had to do.
Right.
And my dad died a very difficult death. And I experienced complicated grief, which mimics a major depressive disorder. And what do you know, lo and behold, it wouldn't go away, and I remember the feeling. You're like stuck in quicksand. And I spoke a few weeks ago about how excessive worry, excessive guilt, excessive feelings of worthlessness, excessive beating yourself up, saying I did this wrong, and never being able to forgive yourself, and the way that those thoughts circulate in your mind over and over again, and just paralyze you with this profound sense of despair and sadness. I know what that feels like, and by knowing it, I can help explain it to others. And in going through that myself, I find myself periodically, just breaking down, crying, and I have to say, okay, this is what your brain's telling you. This is reality. This is how you're going to handle it. Take a few steps forward. And it's only because of my self-talk and my self-training that I've been able to manage this, all these years. But the way that it develops, nobody knows. There's this whole nature nurture debate.
Sure.
Everybody is predisposed to a variety of mental illnesses, and it takes the perception of something experienced in our world around us that either ignites it or allows us to continue to suppress it. So it just depends on where we are in our life and what we're able to process. But I will say, depression is a mental health illness that also falls into behavioral definitions, characteristics, and thought processes from society around. Men, are strong. Men are not supposed to give in to the perils of despair and depression, right? This is the burden that a lot of men feel. And so the symptoms are suppressed, they're hidden, they experience them quietly. And what happens when a person feels trapped, like there's no way out, there's no way that they're ever going to feel better, and there's no way that these feelings are going to end. Unfortunately, this leads to a lot of thoughts of suicide, and unfortunately, some successful, goes at it, which is the most tragic thing that we could ever hear, because there's always tomorrow. There's always a chance for things to get better. And we've talked about this a lot. We don't want people to give up. We want people to listen. We want people to be encouraged, even just to give it one more day, to reach out to that one person that can make a difference for you. So, this is so critical what you're doing, and it's so very important. And I do agree with you that, middle-aged men bear a particular burden, and that's that they're not really seen. They're not really seen when it comes to a lot of these things. And I'm not in any way saying that any other group out there has it easy. We're
None
particularly
of us do.
focusing on middle-aged men today. But in our society, there's a lot of behavioral interpretations with men and boys in general. Like I have two very, very active boys, super, super active boys. Like they'll dig a pot, a hole outside 20 feet deep and fill it with water just to jump in the mud, and I love it. I'm a mom of boys. I was meant to be, and I'll partake in, any and all of that with them. But I can't say that I haven't seen over the course of their lives them judged by members of society for their active and boyish nature, if you will. And in a
Ian,
negative way, like for example, we're in a bookstore in Vermont when my son Vito was about 9, and there was this really nice sign because they were doing the rugs or something, and he saw it as an opportunity to hurdle because he's a track and field athlete. And so he said, "Mom, do you think I could clear that?" And I said, "Yeah, just hold on a minute." So I go over here, I'm the lookout person, and he's hurdling over signs in a bookstore. And all of a sudden some parents come by and they look at us both like we're criminals. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is a memory that we're going to have forever, so it's okay. He's not going to sit on the floor and color. He's going to hurdle the sign, and that's just it.
Funny. And Ian, yeah, what Dr. LaRosa said kind of resonated with you before we talked a little bit about what you're actually doing about it. So I hope, hearing Dr. LaRosa's, explanation in her words and her ability to relate with folks like us and speak to our level, what were your takeaways from hearing what you just said?
I obviously her insight and wisdom and years of experience speak to and validate that the uniquenesses of a middle-aged man, the drop of testosterone, perhaps a realization of unfulfilled dreams, and a waking up one day and saying, this is it, this is all I have, this is all I got, or a divorce after 19 or 20 years, and dumping back out into the world, or a loss of a job, or a little bit too much alcohol, a little bit too much drug, a little bit too much gambling. All of those things combined to put a man in a place where he didn't think he was going to be.
Mhm.
That's exasperated as we went through a collective event, right? I mean, whether you call it the pandemic or the scamdemic, whatever you call it, we can all agree it was a collective event, unprecedented collective event that exasperates some of these issues, and those fissures are deepened and they're exposed. And then a person just wakes up one day and says, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And the rocks in the backpack become too heavy. So as the doc gives us the clinical side of that, the practical side for me is a guy wakes up one day and just says, I can't do it. And unfortunately, because middle-aged men don't have any friends, they say on average, you got one friend when you're a middle-aged guy. Might know a lot of people, but you got no friends. And because it's not, as Doc pointed out, it's not culturally appropriate for me to stand up and say, hey, you know what, I'm a wreck, when you're a mid-level manager, when you're the general manager, when you're the CEO, when you're the shop foreman, when you're working on an oil rig, when you're on a construction site. It's not culturally appropriate to stand up and say I'm a wreck. So they have no choice in their own minds. And I would just say this, Chris, to all of you that might be listening, if what we're talking about resonates, if you can say I can relate, and you have that feeling, then just know this: we're better with you here. That's the whole reason why I'm trying to be the oldest man to play NCAA Division I college football, to prove that you can have a mental health challenge, but it doesn't impact your capacity or your ability. It doesn't impact your mental capability. It just means you have a mental health challenge. And when properly managed through fitness, nutrition, support, and if you so choose, through the doctor's guidance of medication, all of those things combine to put you in a place where you can be productive contributor and break world records, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
you,
can't wait to
that's
hear
amazing.
about your
yeah, and
training.
that's, you know, I
Sorry,
wanted,
Chris. I
yeah,
just,
I want to just say, you know, that's what I want to talk about next, you know, is your amazing work and your advocacy and your aware, the attention you're bringing to middle-aged men, suicide rates and things of that sort. But, you know what, I wanted to say something, you know, that we've talked about throughout our conversation really resonated with me. You know, the pressures you felt, Ian, receiving the key to a city, or the accolades and awards you've received, right? You know, it hits home to me a little bit with Walking Tall, even to a degree, right? People like us, the four of us who have great initiatives and we have aspirations to help one person at a time and ultimately change the world and do the things we do. They may not happen fast enough. They may not happen to the exact way which we envisioned or we hoped, maybe not making the mark we initially thought. And there could bring some despair to that too, right? And so, but that doesn't mean you give up. And that doesn't mean we go away. And you certainly, through your mental health challenges of having depression and not wanting to live at a point in your time. And before I carry on, I want to say I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you got through it, and I'm glad you found the help you needed. And but you're doing something about it today. And you just made mention, and you alluded to your goal of becoming the oldest man to play Division I college football. And you know, talk to us a little bit about what that looks like for you now. How did this idea come to be, and where you're at with your training, and when are your tryouts, and when can we buy your jersey, frankly? So
There
let us
you
know.
go.
come to the Giants. We need you.
So, you know, once I came to the realization that I wanted to live, I want to live. I just don't want to live like this anymore. It wasn't a straight line. And that's important for everyone listening and watching to realize. It's not a straight line. It's not a hockey stick. Oh, it's going to get better. It doesn't do that. It's 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, 1 step forward, and it's daily. It's hourly. For me, it was literally minutely, right? I don't even know if that's a word, but it was every minute. Can I move forward? I wouldn't get out of bed. Happy, positive motivator was hateful and angry and bitter. And literally would say, yeah, I'm going to go and work on my companies. And then I would go to the park and park my car and sit there for a day and just stare out the window and do nothing and say, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, when I came out and decided that I was going to live, I started to make progress and things were good. But there was patterns of thinking and patterns of behavior and patterns of communication that were deeply ingrained, and Doc can speak to it a lot better than me. Those patterns needed to be broken and changed. So I realized that I had to do something outlandish. I had broken a world record 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I'd given the world's longest speech, 51.5 hours. So I thought to myself, I need to do something to solidify these concepts in me. Well, like I'm sure Todd can speak to it. I know, Chris, you can, and I'm sure, Doc, you can too. I don't know your past as much. Athletics had saved me as a kid. Athletics had pulled me out of the pit. Athletics told me I had purpose and meaning and I had value. So I thought, you know what? Let me get involved in some outlandish activity. So I looked at Senior Olympics and I looked at other things. And then I thought, you know what? I'll play football. It'll force me to have a goal that I can point to and wake up for every morning. It'll force me to get my nutrition right, my physical fitness right. It'll force me to train every single day. I'll look through the windshield and not the rearview mirror. So originally it was to save my life because all the things that people were talking to me about weren't working. Yes, I was trying to integrate them into my life. So for those of you that are struggling to try to dig out, don't worry. Don't worry. Just keep plugging daily, 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes. So then I said, okay, I'm gonna be the oldest man to play Division I college football. Well, then I had to figure out the position. I wasn't gonna play quarterback. So I thought I can be a long snapper. Long snapping is a skill. It's not necessarily a talent. It's a learned motion, repeated learned motion. So if I could create the muscle memory through the wonders of neuroplasticity, I could learn how to long snap. So I called or I sent an email to the #1 long snapping coach in the world. His name is Chris Rubio at 11 o'clock at night. I want to be the oldest man to play Division I college football to bring light to the alarming suicide rate amongst middle-aged men. At 11:07, he emailed me back and he said, WTF. And so the next day we got on the phone, and 18 months later, here we are. But I want to be clear, it was originally, and it still is, to save my life. Where it turned into, let's do this as an initiative, was I knew that there was others struggling. I knew that there was others that were broken and hurting. And I knew, and we all have our own different worldview, and we all have our own different faith traditions. In mine, my God reminded me that his hand was with me, and that he had me go through the journey in the wilderness so that I could be a beacon of hope to others. Now, when he told me to go play college football, he didn't guarantee that I would make it, which he and I had a conversation about that the other day. I was like, hey, dude, if I'm going through all this shit, I better play.
You better make the squad, right?
Yeah. But basically, the universe or God, whatever you want to say, said, go. Go. And then finally, I saw depression, anxiety as an actual being, a force of evil. Help me equate in my own mind the battle. I saw it as a force looking to destroy families. Sorry. And communities, parents and kids. And I said, F that, man. F you. I'm a kick your ass. You picked the wrong dude to F with.
Mhm.
So we just started training, snapping, lifting, getting my fat ass in shape. We tried out last year at the University of North Alabama, and I didn't make it. I didn't make it, man. I didn't make it. So I had to make a choice. Everybody said, you tried. You did great, Ian. People are being inspired. I said, no. I said I was going to be the oldest man to play Division I college football. So now we've been training since July of last year for one more try. On May 20th, I'll be at Virginia Union University. They've been so gracious to invite me to come. I'll be at University of Colorado. Coach Prime, he didn't invite me to come. I'm just showing up, man.
Mhm.
Then I'll be at the University of South Alabama. I'll be at Eastern Washington University. I'm going to play Division I college football, but not because I'm special or unique or different, but because all things are possible.
Mhm.
You can overcome the debt. You're $400,000 in debt. You can overcome that. I know your wife left because you're an idiot, because you drank too much, but you can overcome that challenge and be whole again. And yeah, you had a tragic event happen and you can't seem to walk past that tragic event. But I'm telling you, with the proper support and the proper help, you're going to take that challenge and you're going to become a beacon and shine the light on the path of others, much like Chris and Todd have done. So
Well,
together, we're going to make great things happen. We're better for
yeah.
you here. And so I'm just trying to show that we all can make it. I can make it, you can make it, and we can make it. And we can thrive in these unprecedented times.
Yeah, and Ian, knowing you as long as I have, and as I've gotten to know you more closely, there's no doubt in my mind you're going to make it. And
Yeah.
you should
You
know,
know,
that what we say, we have a movement behind us in the Walking Tall movement. We're now behind you as well. And
Thank you.
I hope that you feel the uplifting thoughts and prayers and whatever else comes your way from the three of us and anybody else a part of us for that matter. But you made mention, and Todd, I want to give you an opportunity, hearing what Ian just had to say, and I know a lot of what he said I've felt myself, over the last year and thereabout, and you may have also. But talk to us just a little bit about what Ian said and how you're feeling after hearing that pretty damn inspirational message, if I might say so myself.
Yeah, no, Ian, I mean, number one, you're a man's man, you're vulnerable, you're tough as shit. And that is that perseverance, right, that we all need. It's tough. It's tough. You think about our active military going into civilian life. You think about our first responders working 20, 25 years, whether it's in a hospital setting or a police officer or a firefighter getting out into the real world again, trying to make adjustments to their lives, or professional athletes or just high school or college athletes going into the real world. And now, how do you define what that success? I go back to this a lot, and this is where that depression point sets in, when all of a sudden, for me, when I was playing, my definition of success was pretty easy. It was black and white. Either I pitched good or I didn't pitch good. And if I didn't pitch good, I'm going to go work out as hard as I can to get better. But if I'm sitting in a boardroom or a corporate setting, and it's the day-to-day grind of trying to just do my job, or I'm digging ditches or slinging water over my shoulder, how do I define success day by day? And there's that depression moment where you're just like, I can't get ahead of this. It doesn't matter how much money you pay me or what kind of pats on the back I'm getting. I'm not getting that feeling of success. And that's really hard. And so I resonated a lot with what you were saying, and that just keeping your boots moving forward. And I want to mention something that, listening to you, I just think that the world has to change. I've talked to a lot of different athletes about this, a lot of professional scouts, major league managers, talking about, and we kind of joke around about it, like in the past with, hey, what would you do if I came into your office, Skip, and said, hey, man, I need to talk. Like, I am not mentally there. You would tell me to get my ass out of your office and go to practice, put my uniform on, grit it, and go. And that's the household I grew up in, was that no blood, no foul. You don't share your emotions, other than if there was win, and if there was loss, you're quiet. Right. And you bury it, you move on. And we need to change that stigma. We need to change that damn culture and allow us as people to be vulnerable, like you just showed. I listened to, and I'm going to put this, I think we got to talk about this, crew. But if I make this decision, or we make this decision together, there's a song by Dax, and I don't know if you guys have heard it yet, but it's called To Be a Man. And it's incredible. It broke me down. And it's a story about what a man goes through and how he can't explain things to his ladies, his sisters, his wives. We take this in. It's like what Dr. Vanetta said. We take it, we eat it, we challenge ourselves, we ball it all up, and then all of a sudden it becomes too much. And unfortunately, we see our brothers falling. And I don't want that to happen. So I am such a big fan of yours. I'm your brother. I'm right there with you. You ever need to talk, you call me. I know you can call any of us, but it's awesome, man. I'm so inspired with what you're doing. And just the fact I'm going to be there with you mentally when you are long snapping and knocking some guy down and then standing over him, at 50. It's awesome. So proud of you. So proud.
And Dr. LaRosa, when Ian makes the squad and then ultimately ends up on the Giants, you're going to look back to this conversation and say, I'm the one who started that. But
that's right.
But in all seriousness, hearing what Ian had to say, there's a lot of emotion, but there's also a lot of realness and relatability and science behind it too. So talk a little bit about both, because I know you're an extremely empathetic person like us all, and I'm sure it's resonating.
I know you want to hear more of the brain stuff. I'm getting too emotional. I said I'm not going to get through this today without crying, but I'm doing an okay job so far. Well, I think of a phrase again. I go back to my famous Rocky movies where, Rocky was down in the dumps and he felt like he couldn't beat Mr. T, get out of his mind, whatever was going on. And Apollo said, there's always tomorrow, and that always comes back to me. There's always tomorrow. What you were describing, Ian, when you couldn't get out of your car, when you couldn't get out of bed, along with depression comes symptoms called psychomotor agitation or retardation. your body just can't move. And sometimes you find yourself sitting on the couch 6, 7, 8 hours in the car. You can't move. People say, just exercise, just go to the gym, just ride. You can't do it. You know in your mind you should. You know in your mind it'll make you feel better, but you can't. And it is it's a characteristic of depression. There's several that you need to meet in order to get a diagnosis of major depressive disorder. That's one of them. It's a real thing. And so it's not just laziness, and for men, I could very much see how society could say, oh, he's just lazy. And there's nothing lazy about it. It's a true psychophysiological symptom that a person is experiencing at that time. And like you said, for a man to come out and say, I just can't do it, they're not going to get a lot of sympathy. This is a harsh society, and people unfortunately do hold things against you in the workplace, in life. And sometimes, men especially may feel as if they have to put up the front that there's nothing wrong, or else people will use those difficulties as weaknesses to attack them, in a sense. And they're hiding it to protect their livelihood, their family, their life, as they need everyone to see it. So Todd is right. We need to change that. That's not fair. That's an undue burden that no human being should have to undergo. And we want the world to think differently. We're all people. It doesn't matter how much muscle you have, how strong you look on the outside. We have the same neurotransmitters that are imbalanced when we have depression or other issues. And for depression, there are 3. There's serotonin, which is the one that's majorly implicated. And then you have norepinephrine and dopamine. So when your neurons are communicating with each other, these signals are sent to the end of the end of your neuron. One of the neurotransmitters is released or spit out into your synapse. If it's too much, it could either be too much or too little of that neurotransmitter. And then the receptor sites for other neurotransmitters either become overexcited if there's too much of it, or not excited enough if there's not enough of it. And so it leads to the chemical imbalances of particularly these 3 neurotransmitters that are activating this depressive loop, if you will. Depression has a memory. And that's why when you describe 2 steps forward, 8 back, 1 step forward, 3 back, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what your brain is doing. Your brain is fighting itself to become balanced again. And so people have to give themselves a break, and they have to understand that this is something that their brain is doing right now. And it takes healthy patterns and repetitive behaviors and repetitive thought processes and keep going that will help to change that. But it's always going to be something that people are going to have an understanding of and an ability to move forward with. And as you said, some people need medication. Some people take it short term. Some people say, no, I'm not taking any medication at all. It's not for me. There's too many, side effects for my other medical conditions, whatever have you. There's a variety of ways to move forward and to try to handle those symptoms. So, that's the psychology, neuropsychological side of it. But what you say is real. And I want to put reality behind everything that you're describing. For anyone out there that says depression is not real, men need to, man up and get over this, that's a bunch of nonsense. It's very, very real. And it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. Our brains are, constructed as humans. Yes,
and my takeaway from that, and Ian, I'll give it to you too here real quick. My takeaway from that is, and I hope Ian, you took away as well, is the impacts you were experiencing were common amongst men and women. But the thing I want to say about you is you're not a common man, and the things you're doing are extraordinary. And we're so honored to have you here. And if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how others can find you and follow you along in your journey and track you on this mission to become the oldest man to play college football and any of our other initiatives as well. Please let our listeners know how they could be a part of what you're trying to do as well.
Absolutely. And Doc, thank you so much for giving us the science behind it to validate what people might be feeling. And, Todd, the framework that you laid out, demanding a change, I would just lay this at the feet of our listeners and all of you. I think manhood today is taking your shit and throwing it up on a table. Say,
Mhm.
this is authentically who I am. Saying it personally, publicly, intimately, saying, this is my stuff. These 9 things, I got under control, man. I got them under control. These 2 things, I got no idea how to deal with that. Anybody out there help me?
That's
To
tough.
me, that's a strong man in the 21st century.
That's right. Yep.
It is.
I agree.
That,
You
that,
got to be
that's a
tough.
toughness, strength, machoism, rugged individualism, find a way, make a way attitude. Take your shit, throw it up on a table, tell the world what you are, tell everybody what you got ownership and what you got handled. And then the couple things that you don't, whether it's a friend, whether it's a professional, whether it's a group, whether it's joining the Walking Tall movement, get yourself connected to somebody that can help you. It's okay to not have every answer.
Amen.
So where people can find out about the world record attempt is seasontosavealife.org. Seasontosavealife.org, just as it sounds, seasontosavealife.org. We have a tremendous partnership with the University of British Columbia and their Heads Up Guys program. So when you go to that website and you want more resources and tools, click the button, and through the University of British Columbia and their Heads Up Guys program, there's surveys, there's videos to kind of, am I just sad or am I depressed? What's going on with me? And even a directory of professionals that may be available in your area. But I would say this, and I know, Doc, you could speak to this, Chris and Todd, both of you. I know you're going to say it, but I'm going to say it too. If what we've said to you today, you're saying that's me. If you're saying not only is it me, but I have a plan, then I want you to call right now, 988-988. We are better for you here. The challenges and trials that you face, you can overcome. When you call that 988, there's going to be someone there that cares and loves you. They're going to give you insight and wisdom, and they're going to direct you and guide you. They're not going to judge you. There's no shame. You just call that number. If you have a plan and you've thought about it, call that number. Or if you don't have anybody else in your life to talk to, that was a challenge for me. Everybody thought I was a superstar, and I couldn't tell anybody. If you got no one in your life to talk to, 775-298-1014. 775-298-1014. 775-298-1014. That's my cell phone number. I'll walk with you. Now, ultimately, I'm not the best to walk with you. It's somebody local that's better for you to walk with. But if you got no one else to walk with, I'll walk with you for a little while till we can develop a plan to help you connect with somebody in your local community. The good people of Walking Tall, Season to Save a Life, we're all coming together to say one thing. You have worth and you have value, and we're better for you here. And you can overcome the challenges that you face, and you can carve a tunnel of hope through that mountain of despair.
Amen.
Well, I don't think any of us could say it any better. Wow, I just got goosebumps hearing that, Ian. And, thank you for being here with us this week. And thank you for being a part of the Walking Tall movement. Thank you for valuing our efforts, no different than we value yours. And so I want to encourage listeners next week to tune in when Dr. LaRosa, Todd, and I talk about anger and some of our recent outbursts and how we can control them and where they may spawn from. So I want to just say this show has been absolutely inspiring, amazing. My goosebumps won't go away the rest of the day. But before we sign off, there's always one last thing we want to tell listeners, Ian, and we always ask our guests to lead us in that last little phrase. So if you don't mind telling our listeners what we're all about, and we'll go from there. So have at it.
Well, I'm just going to say this. First, congratulations to the three of you. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing and shining the light on the path for others. It's phenomenal. It's inspiring. And it's already impacting and saving lives. I'll say it in my own verbiage because I'm just that way.
Let's do it.
We're going to walk tall with you, and you walk tall for somebody else. And together, regular people walking tall for one another will change the world. Let's walk tall.
Walk tall.
Walk tall, everybody.
Have a great rest of
Thank
your
you,
week.
Ian.
Thanks again. Walk tall.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, The Balance Project. Check them out at www.thebalance-project.org. Thank you so much for being a proud supporter of the Walking Tall movement.